Right, hello, good evening and welcome to CMR. Well, I've been trying to fit that particular track onto the show for weeks now, and I've always run out of time, so I was determined to get it in at the start. And the spellbinding and extremely hauntingly sounding instrument at the start of that one is actually called a duduk, and it is in fact an ancient Armenian instrument that is, I'm sure you'll agree, just so moving. So tonight on the Cry Freedom Show we have Michael Tellinger talking about ancient ruins and the true origins of humanity. We have part 4 from Robert Young's new book, Your Own Personal Supercomputer. Some wise words from my friend Simon Jakeman on how each of us can make a difference to save this world, and information on how you can get a ticket for the incredible first ever Critical Mass Radio Conference taking place on Saturday the 24th of November in Manchester. Hello, this is Lisa on the Cry Freedom Show.
Hi, this is George from the Prisoner Broadcast.
You're listening to Scout Night at criticalmassradio.co.uk. Hey, you, what's happened to all the scouts? There was loads left in that pan before.
I've left you some in the pan.
No, you haven't. There's nothing wrong.
Yes, there's a full pan there.
Well, you bloody eat it all as perfect as usual.
The dog must have had it.
Yeah, right.
There's some lemon curd there. Just have a lemon curd butty.
Lemon curd, that's all that's left for me. You are always doing this.
You like lemon curd?
No, I don't like lemon
Have a lemon curd butty.
No, I don't want a lemon curd butty.
Calm down. Just calm down.
I thought you were bloody say calm down.
You just need to calm down. Just take a chill pill there. Just take a chill. Calm down. Let's go to ball. Calm down.
People around every corner, they seem to smile and say, we don't care what your name is, boy, we'll never send you away.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now it's our turn.
CMR Critical Mass Radio in association with We Are Change Manchester and Freedom Northwest. Please note the views and opinions expressed by the hosts on this show are not necessarily the views held by the station. CMR is for people who want answers, because now it's our turn.
Time evolves and comes to a place where it renews again. There is first a purification time, then there's renewal time. We are getting very close to this time now. We were told that we would see America come and go. And in a sense, America is dying from within because they forgot the instructions on how to live on Earth. Everything is coming to a time where prophecy and man's inability to live on Earth in a spiritual way will come to a crossroad of great problems. It's the Hopi belief, it's our belief that if you're not spiritually connected to the Earth and understand the spiritual reality of how to live on Earth, it's likely you will not make it. When Columbus came, that began what we term as the First World War. That was the true First World War when Columbus arrived. Because along with him came everybody from Europe. By the end of the Second World War, we were, in America, we were only 800,000 from 60 million to 800,000. So we were almost exterminated here in America. Everything is spiritual. Everything has a spirit. Everything was brought to you by the Creator, the one Creator. Some people call him God. Some people call him Buddha. Some people call him Allah. Some people call him other names. We call him Tonkashila, grandfather. We're here on Earth only a few winters. Then we go to the spirit world. The spirit world is more real than most of us believe. The spirit world is everything. Over 95% of our body is water. And in order to stay healthy, you've got to drink good water. When the European first came here, Columbus, we could drink out of any river. If the Europeans had lived the Indian way when they came, we'd still be drinking out of water because the water is sacred. The air is sacred. Our DNA is made of the same DNA as the tree. The tree breathes what we exhale. When the tree exhales, we need what the tree exhales. So we have a common destiny with the tree. We are all from the earth. And when the earth, the water, the atmosphere is corrupted, then it will create its own reaction. Mother is reacting. In the Hopi prophecy, they say the storms and floods will become greater. To me, it's not a negative thing to know that there will be great changes. It's not negative. It's evolution. When you look at it as evolution, it's time. Nothing stays the same.
Sedan Darwin skrev sitt berömda verk om arternas uppkomst har vetenskapen varit övertygad om att människan härstammar från aporna.
We always say, that might be your ancestor, but it's not our ancestor. He is a relative, but not our ancestor. You should learn how to plant something. That's the first connection. You should treat all things as spirit. Realize that we are one family. It's never something like the end. Just like life, there is no end to life.
Hello folks, it's Thursday, it's Scout Night, and this is the Cry Freedom Show on CMR Critical Mass Radio. As always, hello to everyone listening on Blog Talk Radio tonight, and to those plugged in directly through the CMR website at criticalmassradio.co.uk. And of course, also to anyone listening at a later date on podcast. Right, I love that track on Indigenous wisdom, especially what he says about the trees, that we share the same DNA, and what us and the trees exhale helps each other. Absolutely love it. Right, okay, in a humorous vein, I wanted to pick up firstly tonight on something that was said in the CMR chat room last night, and we had a wee bit of a scouse bashing going on there, and all in the nicest possible way, of course. And a certain Mr. Freeman was talking about getting some T-shirts made up that said, "I survived Scouse Night." So, Rob, I have to tell you, I'm having some of that, and I'm getting one made up with, "I made it out of the Matrix." And that's it. It's pretty innocent, really, but I'm sure that Reverend George is going to follow up with something much more major than that. Love it. Anyway, thank God we can have a laugh on here. Right, because we live in trying times, and we all know this, and it's not easy to stay positive with everything that's going on around us. And it has been a bit of a hard week for me, but hey, we all get this, so right, it's all part of life. And I think the bad times do help us appreciate the good ones even more. And I really do feel that the most important thing is that we don't beat ourselves up too much for feeling down, because we just got to get on with it and cope with it the best way we know how. And we always know that it will eventually pass and things will start improving. And I think the most important conclusion I came to myself this week is basically to always stand true and integral to myself first and foremost. And as long as I know that I'm honest to myself and others and do things with my heart as much as possible, then all is good. So I say let's all help and encourage each other to stay positive as much as we can. And I did get a poetic urge today, which afflicts me from time to time. So I did write a little poem based on what I've just said, and it's called Believe. And I've got to say, well, I'm going to put this on now, but the strange creaky noise at the beginning is my bloody mouse, because the mouse pad on my laptop has just given up on me. And I've now got a mouse with creaks. And God, I can so sympathise with that, because that's what I sound like when I try and get up after I've sat up cross-legged for some time. So anyway, this is my poem called Belief. Through deep despair we see the light when we rise above this daily fight. These times are tough and emotions so fraught, but it is time to turn to what is taught. So what is taught in the ancient writings? That we only get there when we stop fighting. We need to realize our inner voice and power to enable our strength to become that tower. We need to see the power of the heart and not let our thoughts always tear us apart. For what we feel inside will find its way out and manifest the energies without a doubt. So when we hurt in the depths of our souls, this is the time to set our new goals. See and feel what you want deep inside. Believe it will be and put worries aside. For our true abilities surpass all we know. We must set our own path and on it we go. And all we really need is to know and believe, and life will be what we sow and we weave. So open your hearts to all you desire. Feel it with passion, with hope and with fire. Let your energy rise to the stars up above, like a bird in flight, a gleaming white dove. And when we all know this, the change is complete, and our fears, tears and worries will all then deplete. For then we have reached what we are meant to be, and the future will be perfect for you and for me. Okay, right, I want to start this week by reading out an article that was written by a good friend of mine, Simon Jakeman. And regular listeners may remember Simon is a fireman who works down south, and he is an avid promoter of self-sufficiency and growing your own food. And he has the other firemen at the station all growing stuff there on the station roof terrace. And Simon wrote a piece recently called How to Save the World. And I did just want to read this out on the air because he covers some good stuff. So here we go. How to Save the World by Simon Jakeman. Sounds like something you would ask Flash Gordon, James Bond, Superman or Wonder Woman to help out with. Arctic melting, floods, trees being cut down in the Amazon, animals and birds facing extinction, overfishing and bees dying. You know the drill. You've been preached to and teach to over the years. We're all aware of the problems the world faces. The trouble is, it all seems so separated from our everyday thoughts. We are all on an increasing speeding treadmill trying to keep plates spinning as we juggle our busy lives. There is so much information coming from different directions. The little voices in the wilderness are often drowned out by views from others with more power and greed-based agendas. We are in strange times at the moment. Economic and social collapse seems to be heading towards us like a huge tidal wave, which our politicians are obsessed with controlling, like King Canute, even though he was eventually showing that even a king couldn't control nature. It always seems like we are on the verge of impending doom, a new fear factor. The trouble is, it makes us hide away our thoughts. A few years ago, on a spring morning, I was pondering all this mess. In a split second of clarity, I realized none of this really matters. Just out of the blue, I noticed I was not just outside, but amongst nature. Bees buzzing, birds singing, trees about to burst into leaf, and clouds racing across the sky. I just realized it was all interconnected, and I was part of it too. Not in a tree-hugging or a religious way, more of a smelling the coffee kind of way. As a child of the 70s and 80s, a scout, a cross-country runner, I grew up outside. My dad always taught us names of butterflies, birds and trees, looking at stars, etc. My granddad grew fruit and veg, and my godfather's family even owned a farm. It all just flew into place. As kids, my generation were always outside. The kids that stayed in were the strange ones. I started thinking about how could we expect the next generation to protect nature if we didn't know how to. While our politicians were banging on about economics and society, I was thinking that the environment was the keystone that held them together. I wanted to play my small part in changing attitudes towards it. As a frontline firefighter for nearly 20 years, I've been one of the bods in the boat evacuating people from floodline houses. I've chased wildfires through the woods and picked up pieces of storm damage. I've stared natural disasters in the eye. It all seems a bit personal. I wanted to do my little bit in slowing this, but how? An idea of growing a bit of locally grown fruit and veg with family, friends and neighbours was the start. A way of getting everyone back outside. Meeting the odd bird, bee and bug along the way and reconnecting with nature. I even started growing a small amount of food on the fire station roof and eventually became a green champion. Turning the odd light off, recycling, getting a cycle rack installed, etc., etc., all little actions slowly adding up to making a change. Even by putting recycling bins and a few signs in the right place has made a difference. I'm now studying for an environment studies degree so I can get more informed. I've never preached to anyone, just tried to set a quiet example. It's amazing how many people have come on board in their own time. It's been about planting little seeds so people change without knowing. People hate being told what to do, especially about how to save the world. But if everyone could just be mindful that everything is interconnected, things will change. Even if it's not taking a plastic bag to carry bread and milk in on the way home from work, if you think about it, they're already in containers. Every little action counts. A marathon starts with one small step. So, how do you save the world? Well, I'm not sure, but I know there are heroes with thousands of different faces. Thank you for listening. Laters. So, very wise words from Simon there, and he is so right. It's all about each and every one of us setting our own small examples of how we can make that difference in our own little lives. And by doing this, we can indeed plant the seeds of thought into others, who in turn will do the same, and before we know it, we have the 100th monkey syndrome appearing. So well done, Simon. And this, of course, is what we are also trying to do here at CMR. We are trying to inform people not only of the problems, but also of the possible ways that we, as a collective group of people who get it, can make that difference and encourage others to follow suit. So again, once again, I do urge people listening to go out there and do something out of your usual 9-to-5 routine that will help in some way. No matter how small, just to change the world we live in, because it really does need that change so very badly, and to be honest, so very urgently. So all that leads me nicely onto the next jingle. Okay, so the first ever CMR Critical Mass Radio Time to Act conference will take place on Saturday the 24th of November, as said there, at the Britannia Country Hotel in Didsbury, Manchester, with an incredible lineup of speakers and an amazing and very important information will be given out on that day. So if you want to join with those of us who are trying to move forward with solutions that can actually make a difference, then you do want to be with us on the 24th of November. And for just £20, you can get a whole day of essential material that will help us move in the right direction. And the money you pay goes towards paying for the event itself and to helping us here at CMR continue to do what we do. So get yourselves onto the CMR webpage at criticalmassradio.co.uk, where you will find a poster on the front page giving the full details of this event. And to purchase tickets, you just need to hit on the donate button on the site and pay the relevant amount, and you will then receive a confirmation email that will tell you to bring it on the day. So I look forward to seeing you there on the day, folks. Okay, so that was a bit of a debate going on there, and as many of you will know, I feel very strongly about all of this, and I love Brian May because I think he's doing some incredible work there, and he speaks with his heart, and he's a real genuine guy. And I don't know if many of you know this, but Brian May actually runs his own wildlife sanctuary where he looks after many animals, badgers included, but he's a really nice guy. And this actually does get me quite strongly, and I know a lot of people won't take this as seriously as I do because they just think, well, it's just badgers, but it's so much more than just badgers. If you look beyond it, there's a whole thing going on here that is so much more than badgers. But anyway, moving on. It's actually been a very significant week regarding the badger cull because firstly came the news that the cull has in fact been postponed now. It was supposed to be taking place any day now, and it's been postponed until the next summer 2013. And I've got to say, to me personally, the reasons given were pretty bloody pathetic, and it just convinces me even more that this whole thing has been a big game being played out by the government to waste time and distract us from other issues. The Environmental Secretary Owen Paterson blamed the delay on the Olympics and bad weather, so make of that what you will. Okay, right, other news this week and today especially has been a debate took place in the Commons today, in fact, on the cull, and this is hot off the press, but basically it was fantastic to hear that the vote went overwhelmingly against the cull. I have to say I wasn't surprised, but yes, it went against the cull and it was going for vaccination. And the vote is not binding on the government, but it does send a very strong message from the people to the government in whatever that means. So good news for the badgers, even if all orchestrated. And my heart kind of rests easy tonight knowing that they're safer for now, but we're still fighting this crap, right? So this is an ongoing issue. Right, I wanted to read out a quote from a speech that was made also this week by a gentleman called Lord Krebs in the House of Lords, which is something I normally steer away from, but Lord Krebs headed up a scientific study that was carried out over 10 years ago on the effects of culling, and he was one of the people involved in that research who did actually reach the conclusion at the end that culling would be ineffective and could actually make the whole situation worse. And this is what he said this week in the House of Lords. Quote, "My Lords, as has been said, bovine TB is a serious problem and it deserves serious science to underpin policy. I do not want to take up too much time, but I hope that your lordships will forgive me as an individual who has been involved in this over the past 15 years, and, as has been said, instigated the randomised badger culling trial and took part in the review of the evidence with Sir Bob Watson last year. It is worth briefly repeating the facts. The long-term, large-scale culling of badgers is estimated to reduce the incidence of TB in cattle by 16% after 9 years. In other words, 84% of the problem is still there. To reflect on what this means, this is not a reflection in absolute terms, but actually a 16% reduction from the trend increase. So after 9 years, there is still more TB around than there was at the beginning. It is just that there is 16% less than there would have been without a cull. The number is not 30% that the National Farmers Union quoted. That is misleading and a dishonest filleting of the data. The other thing the experts conclude is that culling makes the situation worse at the beginning, so it will take a long time to emerge into this nirvana of 16% reduction, and 84% of the problem is still there. This is just the background. I turn to questions that I hope the Minister will answer. Last Friday, we were told by the Minister of State for Food and Farming that between 500 and 800 badgers would be culled in each of the two areas. The number, thanks to rapid badger reproduction over the weekend, is now 5,530 over the two areas, a fourfold increase. I am impressed. What this underlines is that if the policy is to cull at least 70% of the badgers, we have to know where the starting number is. This variation from just over 1,000 to more than 5,000 in the space of a few days underlines how difficult it is for us to have confidence that the government will be able to instruct the farmers to cull 70% if they do not know the starting numbers. So my first question to the Minister is, how will he assure us that these numbers are accurate? If we ask why the National Farmers Union has backed out, it is because it was due to pay those who were going to shoot the badgers on a per-badger basis. The NFU calculated it on the basis of shooting 1,300 badgers. Suddenly, it is told it's 5,500 badgers. The farmers thought it was worth doing, but not that much. They have done their own cost-benefit calculation and say it's not worth the candle. So my second question to the Minister is, in next year's cull, who is going to pay? Are the farmers going to stump up it on a per-badger basis to shoot 5,500 badgers, or are we, the taxpayer, going to pay? Finally and briefly, we have a pause and time to rethink. I urge the ministers to gather together scientific experts and rethink the government strategy altogether, starting from square one. So there you have it, and this just concurs even more to me that the reasons given for the postponement are a load of rubbish. Anyway, to finish, I would just say, if you do want to find out more about all this, then please do visit Brian May's wonderful Save Me website, which you can find at save-me.org.uk. Okay, can't beat the oldies. Well, I've got to say that right, yeah. Okay, so last week I featured an audio from Michael Tellinger, the founder of the Ubuntu Liberation Movement out in South Africa. And I explained that Ubuntu is the African word which means a community-driven existence that is all about everyone working together for the better of the general good of everyone. And this week I wanted to play another one of Michael's clips. Those who heard what Michael was saying last week will have understood that he's very much into discovering the truth about where humanity actually came from, and he's done so much significant research into ancient ruins. So the clip I'm going to play in a moment is about some of his discoveries. But just before I play that, I have an update that was kindly sent to me yesterday by Pippa, who's on the next show with our Reverend, so thanks Pippa for that. And this is a press release from this Tuesday just gone, and it is entitled, Ubuntu party lawyer tied up at gunpoint while files and computer data are removed. And it goes as follows. On Saturday, the 20th of October, the legal advisor for the Ubuntu Party and the New Economic Rights Alliance, Raymond Dix, was overpowered at his home office in a military-style operation by between 6 and 10 armed men. Mr. Dix, who is a legal advisor to the South African police and the army for many years, says that the event was executed with absolute precision and intent to gain access to his documents and legal files. He and 2 other people who were there at the time were tied up on the floor for over 3 hours while the intruders ransacked his office. It was a clear attempt to make it look like a robbery, but it is quite obvious that what they were after. All the pertinent research and legal documentation relating to legal action against the banks. The investigating officer took no more than a few minutes to determine that this was not a normal robbery, but most likely had an ulterior motive behind it. Mr. Dix is the legal representative of the New Era and Ubuntu Party and Ubuntu Liberation Movement. He has been representing Michael Tellinger in his personal capacity in various actions against the bank, mainly Standard Bank. Earlier this year, he drafted the constitutional court papers that Tellinger served against the 4 major banks, the Reserve Bank and the Minister of Finance. Mr. Dix has been investigating and gathering extremely sensitive evidence to lay criminal charges against the banks for their unlawful activities against all the people of South Africa. The intruders left behind obvious items of high value while they searched meticulously through all of Mr. Dix's legal files, creating a huge mess of all the paperwork. While being careless with other laptops and electronic equipment causing some damage to it, the process of gathering it, they took great care to remove his computer undamaged together with the backup drives and all of the secondary backups that were well hidden on the property. It was only the next day when Dix tried to analyse his losses that he discovered the files relating to the cases of Michael Tellinger, Ubuntu Party and the New Era were missing. Quote, "It is very clear to me what they were after. It does not take a rocket scientist to work this out," he said. "Their decoy did not really work because the files they removed were very obvious," he added. Unquote. The entire horrific experience was captured on security cameras showing the whole operation from the beginning. The most disturbing part of the footage is that it showed what seems to be 2 police vehicles with flashing lights escorting the other vehicles containing the intruders while they closed off the road next to his house, allowing the operation to happen uninterrupted. We trust that the South African police will take this matter extremely seriously because it goes to the core of our socio-economic structure and the well-being of everyone, exposing those who are behind what can only be called the largest legalized organized crime syndicate in the world. The banksters that rule our lives and manipulate our government with impunity and no recourse. Michael Tellinger urges all South Africans to take this as a clear sign that we are very close to exposing their unlawful activity and to unite in the support for the Ubuntu Party in their mission to put an end to this abuse of our most basic human rights and to restore all power to the people, where the power should always be. And just to give you a link to the website for the Ubuntu Party, which is www.ubuntu, which is spelled UBUNTU, party, ubuntuparty.org.za. Okay, so there you go. The powers are obviously worried about the wonderful work of Ubuntu, and they will take any means to discredit and stop this work, basically. So the same old scenarios are taking place right across the world. So moving on, as I said, Michael is also very much involved with discovering our true origins and not the ones that we have been manipulated into believing. So I'm going to play some of Michael's audio on ancient ruins now, and this is going to last about 20 minutes, and it's some really interesting information.
If I asked you, what are the oldest man-made structures on Earth? What would probably come to mind are the pyramids or Stonehenge or one of the many other impressive ancient stone ruins. But for us to truly discover the oldest structures built by humans, we have to go in search of the home of the earliest humans on Earth. Because if we find this so-called cradle of humankind, we are surely to find the structural evidence of those earliest modern humans that walked the Earth. So, where is this cradle of humankind? It is generally agreed by scientists and archaeologists that the earliest humans emerged out of southern Africa somewhere between 200 and 300,000 years ago. This has been supported by genetic studies on the mitochondrial DNA in females that suggest the same. Modern humans first emerged out of southern Africa somewhere between 170 and 300,000 years ago. It is truly amazing that the oldest written records ever discovered, in the form of thousands of inscribed clay tablets left behind by the earliest civilization on Earth, the Sumerians, tell us exactly the same thing. In fact, many of these clay tablets that predate the Bible by as much as 4,000 years tell us in great detail how and when the first humans appeared in southern Africa, how they lived, and what they did. And while we accept most of what the Sumerians tell us in these clay tablets they left behind, strangely enough, the information about early humans has been disregarded by most scholars. So, not only do we have scientific evidence, but also an historic account of where the first humans came from. The South African government spends millions of rands promoting the concept of the cradle of humankind. Tourists get taken to Maropeng and Sterkfontein caves and shown a bunch of fossils as evidence, like Mrs. Pless and Littlefoot, which are very impressive fossils, but they have nothing to do with Homo sapiens. These are great examples of Australopithecus, a hominid creature that predates humans by between 2 and 5 million years. So this is actually a misnomer, and these places should rather be called the cradle of hominid kind, because no remains of Homo sapiens have ever been found at Sterkfontein caves. So where is the real cradle of humankind? Where is this evidence of these early humans and what they did? What we are told is that around 60,000 years ago, the first humans left southern Africa and moved north, eventually populating the whole planet. The question remains, where did they live and what did they do for several 100,000 years before the great global trek? At about 80,000 years ago, we see the emergence of what seems to be human consciousness, when people began to paint elaborate images on cave walls, making beads, and carving images in stone. The beads and carved ochre stone recovered from a cave at Blombos in the Western Cape, South Africa, has been dated to around 80,000 years. This is arguably the oldest artifact found to date made by early humans. Many thousands of cave paintings by so-called San or Khoisan people have been discovered, and some dated back to the same period. This example of a cave painting in Zambia was dated to be 30,000 years old, but the paint fragments collected from the cave floor below show to be 400,000 years old. This only highlights the fact that our dating techniques are not always as accurate as we think. A fascinating site discovered in northern Botswana, called the Python worship site, has been dated to around 70,000 years. What is fascinating about this site is that it shows early humans in the act of worshipping a snake. This is a very important bit of information, because there are 3 common denominators throughout all of human history that cannot be separated from human activity, and these are the quest for gold. Man and his gods have always been obsessed with gold and mined it in various ways. Even since the book of Genesis, shortly after the creation of Adam, God shows his lust for this shiny metal. Secondly, slavery. Mankind has always practiced slavery, been enslaved, or enslaved others. The amazing thing is that the gods in all religions seem not only to condone the act of slavery, but they often give the slave masters instructions on how to punish their slaves and even allow to kill them if they've really misbehaved. The final common denominator is the winged serpent, or feathered serpent, or flying serpent. Every ancient civilization speaks of this mythical creature that came out of the sky, gave life to people, and taught them all they know. This creator god was also known as the medicine god. He was known as Enki in the Sumerian mythology, one of the three gods in the first Holy Trinity ever worshipped, and his ancient symbol is still used as the symbol of modern medicine today. So, this snake worship site in southern Africa is paramount to the presence of early humans in this part of the world, and the earliest worship of the same gods as the Sumerians and other later civilizations in the north worshipped. And so we begin to find the earliest evidence of what modern man did in this part of the world, a long, long time before mankind ever migrated out to populate the rest of the planet. But what other evidence of early humans do we have? Scattered throughout the mountains of southern Africa lie over 100,000 stone structures. Modern historians have often called these just cattle kraal of little historic value. It is said that these ruins are the remains of Bantu tribes when they began arriving in southern Africa from the north in the 13th century AD. In reality, the obsession with these ruins goes back about 500 years to the first Portuguese explorers who were mesmerized by the many ruins they discovered on the maiden journey into the African heartland. The sheer number of these stone structures defies any logic and does not tally up with the historic population numbers in southern Africa. The ruins are mostly circular. Some of the walls still stand over 3 meters tall and over 1.5 meters wide, and the most impressive ones are always at the tops of mountains. These stone ruins are not just isolated structures. They form part of large settlements surrounded by endless agricultural terraces and linked by ancient roads that have been tracked for over 500 kilometers, even in their ruined state. Many have been destroyed by development and forestry. Some terraces resemble the ones at Machu Picchu of the Incas in Peru. Early archaeological evaluation suggests that some of these terraces may be older than 5,000 years. This complex of mysterious ruins covers an area larger than 150,000 square kilometers, and the ruined complex at Watervalboven is larger than Johannesburg today. But what is so special about these ruins? Many of them aligned with north, south, east, west, the solstices, equinoxes, while others show signs of highly intelligent design and knowledge of advanced geometry. There is also overwhelming evidence of the presence of Asian gold miners and merchants as far back as 2,000 years ago to the birth of Christ. Dr. Cyril Hromnik has spent 30 years researching this link and presents much evidence. Hindu shrines known as dolmen are scattered throughout the hills and inside many ruins. This ruin is built in the shape of a well-known Hindu symbol of fertility. Some artifacts suggest that these Asian traders, Arabic, Hindu, Chinese, may have been here as far back as 2500 BC. And what was the purpose? It was always about gold. Thousands of ancient gold mines have been reported over the past 500 years, and new ones are being discovered all the time, even by ourselves. But is there one ruin that can pull all of this into perspective? A flagship among all of them that can be dated? Yes, there is. The most important and impressive piece of stonework in the ancient world. We call it Adam's Calendar, the oldest man-made structure found to date on Earth, and the centerpiece among the ruins that gives them all a purpose and meaning. This African Stonehenge was discovered by Johann Heine in 2003 by accident, as it always happens. The entire site stretches for over 2 kilometers and consists of the north site, the southern site, and the main site. The main site of Adam's Calendar was originally a circular structure, which can still be seen on satellite photographs. The main and central dolerite monoliths weigh about 5 tons each, and are perfectly aligned to the movement of the sun. This is the oldest stone calendar on Earth, older than the Sumerian calendar, which started 3760 BC. This calendar also marks the beginning of the year with the rise of the sun on the spring equinox. It is aligned to the north, south, east, west, winter solstice, summer solstice, and the equinoxes. The wooden pole was placed where the stone man stood. We call him the oldest statue on Earth. The stone man, who observed the rise of the sun in the east, was removed in 1994 by ignorant individuals, but was miraculously saved and placed at the entrance of the nature reserve. One of our objectives is to return him to his place of origin. The tree on the right has grown next to the north marker stone, and the tree on the left marks the southern stone. The two main central monoliths are aligned so that the taller one casts a shadow on the surface of the flatter, wider one, and we can track the days of the year as the shadow moves from the one edge to the other. On the solstice, it reaches the edge and it turns and moves back across to the other edge of the calendar rock. Notice how the taller calendar stone was cut to allow the setting sun on the winter solstice to cast a shadow on the calendar stone. This is the view north, which dissects the central calendar stones. And this is the opposite view south, perfectly placed to dissect the central monoliths. We noticed that about 1 kilometer directly north of Adam's calendar, a very suspicious-looking tree growing alone and out of place. Upon closer inspection, we discovered that it was an ancient stone altar, or possibly even a grave of a powerful king, on whose grave sacrifices and rituals would have been performed. But the mystery deepens even more. All along the edge of the cliff, stretching for about 1 kilometer, lie over 100 dolerite stones of various shapes and sizes. Almost every one of these stones shows signs of carving, chiseling, and shaping in some way. It is as if this was an ancient school or workshop where monoliths were prepared and shaped for specific ritual purposes. A ritual path runs between these monoliths, linking all three sites of Adam's calendar, and passes by another stone man who presides over some important ritual in days gone by. But how do we date the stones? How do we determine its age? You cannot carbon date rocks, so we have to look at other scientific clues that point us in the right direction. We looked at the following: magnetic resonance and alignment, soil shift, geology, erosion, lichen growth, archaeoastronomy, stellar alignments, and even psychic revelations. The magnetic fields of monoliths differ dramatically from that of the bedrock, which suggests that they were brought here from another location. Thousands of years of soil shift has caused most of the monoliths to fall over, except the few central stones which were most crucial in the structure and were most likely buried deeper than all the others. The geology of the site gives us the first real breakthrough. The site is situated on the edge of a cliff which is called the Transvaal Escarpment, which is known as Black Reef Quartzite, rich in gold and other metals. But all the monoliths are dolerite, and the closest source of dolerite is between 500 meters and 1 kilometer away from the edge. This means that someone went to a great deal of trouble bringing hundreds of these monoliths here, carved them and shaped them for a variety of uses, including the building of the calendar site. Erosion is a great indicator of how long these stones have been lying in their positions. The best example is a rock we call the skull, and we assume that it was full and uneroded, like all the other rocks, when it was brought to this site. Most geologists will agree that this level of erosion would take many thousands of years, probably well over 100,000 years. Lichen is the whitish organism that grows on the surface of rocks. This particular species is known to grow at about 1 millimeter per annum. under perfect conditions. It would take about 2,000 years for this lichen to cover this monolith from side to side. But these two monoliths are covered by multiple layers of this lichen. A more scientific analysis of these lichen layers will most likely show that it has been growing here for many multiples of 2,000 years. Archaeoastronomy is one of the best indicators pointing to a great age of the stone calendar. When observing the calendar from satellite images, it is instantly noticeable that the north-south axis is not aligned with 12 o'clock or north-south on a current map. This means that whoever built the calendar must have done so at a time in history when the north-south alignment was different to that of today. After measuring the site, we established that the current north-south alignment is out by 3 degrees, 42 minutes and 17 seconds. We know that the planet Earth is inclined on its axis at 23.5 degrees. At this angle, it wobbles like a spinning top, and it takes 25,800 years to complete one of these precessional wobbles in a clockwise direction. So this means that every 25,800 years, the north-south will realign to the point of departure, roughly speaking. It seems that the planet is just more than 3 degrees away from realigning with the current north-south, at which point it would have completed its 25,800-year cycle, or multiples thereof. This is where it gets really interesting, because we know with a certain amount of confidence that the calendar is at least 25,000 years old, or multiples thereof, give or take a few thousand years. It is therefore the erosion patterns that suggest the site is older than just 25,000 years. Many ancient structures are aligned with Orion's belt, like the pyramids of Giza, the Mayan pyramids, the pyramids in China, and even the Great Zimbabwe ruins. Could Adam's calendar also be linked to Orion? We noticed 3 monoliths that had fallen down the eastern side of the outer circle, and we believed that they were not accidentally placed in their original position. Our suspicions were rewarded because we realized that these monoliths are actually aligned with the rise of Orion's belt when it rose flat on the horizon, which would have been at least 75,000 years ago. So we have a number of indicators that suggest the calendar is at least 75,000 years old. An interesting coincidence is that the Great Pyramid of Giza, Zimbabwe ruins, and Adam's calendar are all built along the 31-degree east longitudinal line. And finally, 6 independent psychics have given us exactly the same historic information about the calendar site. Whether we believe in psychics or not, this poses an interesting scientific fact. The statistical probability that they could have given us the same information is about 50 billion to 1. So, as it stands, Adam's calendar is the oldest man-made structure discovered to date. It takes us closer to the emergence of humankind than ever before.
Okay, so we are without a doubt living in special times right now, and not easy times, and as we see all of what is wrong with this world in great clarity, it is, I strongly believe, needed for our evolution. And I just wanted to quote from my friend Ron Van Dyke right now. And we have actually featured Ron on the station before. He did actually come on for an interview a couple of months ago. Ron lives in the US, and he's actually been doing a daily video diary now for well over a year. And he imparts his valuable and very reassuring wisdom each time. And I have to say, he certainly has helped me over the last year or so, especially at the beginning of my true awakening, when I feel that if it hadn't been for Ron, I really would have suffered without his daily words of hope and love. Anyway, it was Ron's birthday last Sunday, and I'd like to send him all my love for that. And I just want to repeat some words that Ron actually said on his birthday on his video for that day, which are as follows. Quote, "We haven't even scratched the surface of what it means to be human, and every cell in our bodies has so much power. Life is energy and life is spirit, And we are all energy, and we are all spiritual beings. We are all more than we think we are, and we don't buy into this rubbish we are told about as being less than, not good enough, and will only be loved if we do this or that, or believe this or that. That is all a lie. Reality is interconnectedness and unity of all things, even though we can and do create the experience of disunity and disharmony and of discord and constant conflict. We are in a time of the gathering of souls, and the energies are being intensified. The awakening is accelerated, and we need to turn on our supernatural eyes so we can see what is happening, and then so we can all learn to love again. And I just love that, and I just felt the need to read that out tonight. And I felt that we are getting such similar messages from people on all levels right now. So it does actually really feel that everything really is interconnected. Okay, well, I'm running out of time again. It's gone very quickly, so I've got about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to have to draw it to a close now, I think. I missed out a few things. Once again, I've really enjoyed tonight, and don't forget that the CMR Time to Act conference is a fantastic place to network and find out about the solutions we have to try to overcome this mess. And it's taking place on Saturday the 24th of November in Manchester, and the details are on the CMR website at criticalmassradio.co.uk. And trust me, there will be some amazing information shared at this event, and you will get to meet a lot of the hosts that do the broadcasting at CMR. Next up on Scouse Night, we have the Reverend George on the Prisoner broadcast, and he will be joined by Pippa and David Lloyd, and they're going to have a general discussion on topics from drones, chemtrails, smart meters, RFID chips, free energy, and a look at the latest PS3 offering, which is Assassin's Creed 3, so no doubt that will be interesting. I'm actually going to be back with you tomorrow night, because I'm actually covering for the Changing Consciousness show for Brian, our boxing vicar here on CMR, because he's taking a week off in Germany. And I'm going to be covering a Futility of War special, basically, which is going to be focusing on the Vietnam War conflict. And it will include some moving and inspirational words from the famous little girl in the black and white photo that was burnt. She was burnt so very badly from napalm. And we've also got some great music from that era, so please join me for that tomorrow here on CMR at 9 o'clock. And before that, tomorrow we have the Earth Needs Rebel show with Andy and Kevin at 7 o'clock. So, to finish, I send you all my love, and as always, I wish you all a perfect life, a perfect health, and a magic future. And I'd say to you all, take care, and I'll see you all tomorrow. So thank you all for listening, and good night.